Here is my Yaesu FRG8800 communications receiver. This is another receiver from the 1980s. It replaced the FRG7700. I had an FRG7700 years ago. In fact, it was the first communications receiver I owned that had digital readout. This replacement is slightly more modern in appearance. It's got an LCD, backlit LCD display rather than the LED arrangement that the 7700 had. Basically, it's the same sector of the market that the 7700 was in. It's not really, or never was, a top-end receiver like the ICOM R70 or the NRD525 or the Drake R8. You'll see this is a somewhat simpler communications receiver. I've owned this one for probably about a year now, and I'm very, very impressed with it. It's a lovely set to operate. It works very well. Nice audio from the front-facing speaker here, and it's pretty simple to use. So let's just have a look at the basic controls. We've got our power on-off switch here, and next to that we've got a headphone output and a record output. We've got a squelch control. Again, this receiver has a narrow FM, which can be used on 27 megs for listening to CB or 10 meters FM. Could use it with a converter as well for VHF and UHF emitter bands. And in fact, these sets, there was a VHF converter available to fit into these. This radio doesn't have that. So next to the squelch control, we've got a tone control just for tailoring the receive audio, and an AF gain volume control. Above that, we've got narrow and wide filtering. So in AM mode, we can switch between narrow and wide filters. We've got an automatic gain control here, but it's fast or slow. We can't switch the AGC off as we can in some of the other receivers. We've got a noise blanker, and we've got a dimmer to dim the intensity of the backlight on the display here. Above that, we've got the row of mode switches: AM, lower sideband, upper sideband, CW and FM. As I say, this radio has narrow FM. We have the tuning knob, of course, which it's not the type of knob that you could spin like the NRD525, but it's nice and firm. It's got quite a nice feel to it, and it's easy to tune accurately. We have a dial lock button, which if we press that, it locks the tuning knob off so that it doesn't alter frequency while that lock is engaged. And we've got tuning speeds here, fast or slow. Underneath that, we have a fine tune knob, and from what I found anyway, when you use this, it's handy just for super accurate tuning, maybe on SSB, but any frequency adjustments made on this are not reflected on the frequency display here. Over here now, we've got the controls for the clock that's built into the receiver, for setting the clock and for switching between. You've got two clock options, or you can have the frequency displayed. There's also a sleep function, so you could effectively use the receiver as a bedside clock. We've got a keypad here for direct entry of frequencies. Now, it's slightly quirky the way the FRG8800 works when you input frequencies, and I'll show you that later when it's in the shack and all plugged in. But once you're used to it, it actually works quite well. We've got controls here for programming the memory, switching between memory and VFO. We've got various scanning functions here, which again I think are more tailored towards if you had the VHF converter option fitted to the radio, you'd probably be more likely to use the scanning there. Again, we have memory functions here as well. We have 12 memory channels, and they're switched using this knob here. And we have an attenuation control, basically an RF gain control. It's normally left in the off position here when I use the radio, but you can click it and select your level of attenuation from that. So let's have a look at the rear of the receiver now. And here we are at the rear of the radio. You'll see here there should be a panel over here. These are the backup batteries that retain the memory settings. There should be a little door. When I bought this receiver it was missing, so it's not there. Memories would still function. You put 3 AAA batteries, not AAA, sorry, AA batteries in here, and that will back up the memories when the receiver is disconnected from the mains. We've got a little control here. We can alter the volume of the beep sound that the receiver makes when you use various functions. We've got a line out here which you could pipe the receiver, I suppose, into a hi-fi system, or you could use this with a tape recorder, or indeed you could feed it into a computer for decoding data. Got an external speaker jack. We've got a switch here to switch the noise blanket between narrow mode and wide mode. We've got 2 outputs here which could be used for switching a tape recorder on and off. We've got an accessory socket and a cat socket for, I'm assuming, computer control. So I'll look at that and I'll post the functions of the accessory and the cat socket in text on this video. There's a blanking plate here, you can see, with 4 screws. I think this is where the VHF converter, if there was one fitted to the radio, it would fit there. Just go a little closer. We've got the SO239 for our antenna, and we've also got wire terminals if we're using a wire antenna for antenna and ground, and also for a mute if you're using the receiver in conjunction with a transmitter. Little blanking plate here, which again I think was an optional 12 volt power fitting. It's not on this radio. We've got a fuse, and we've got the familiar 3-pin AC connector that's common to a lot of receivers and actually common to a lot of PC equipment as well. So that's the radio. Next we'll have a look at it in action in the shack. Okay, we're back in the shack now with the FRG8800 connected up to an antenna and plugged into the mains. You can see the display, the backlit LCD display I was talking about, and the effect here of the dimmer button. So we've got 2 settings. Now, the slight quirkiness about inputting a frequency to this radio, of course, we can simply tune in the traditional manner using the tuning knob there. If we want to punch in a frequency, we punch it in separately for megahertz and kilohertz. So let's say we wanted to go to 11 megahertz frequency in the 25 meter band. We'd press 1 here and then hit the megahertz button, and that takes us to 11 megahertz. And if we want 11.6, 11,600, we'd type 600 and hit the kilohertz, and we're on frequency. So there's a couple of extra button pushes over some radios. With the NRD525, for example, you just punch in the frequency and press enter. But once you get used to this, it's fine. There isn't really an issue with it. As I've said before, the radio, it tunes quite smoothly, but you haven't got the kind of knob spinning effect you can have with the NRD525. The audio quality from the built-in speaker at the front here is very good. Let's just have a quick look to see if we can hear anything on the 40 meter ammeter band. So we'll go 7 megahertz and 200 kilohertz. I'll set it for LSB. Let's turn the volume up a little. Put it into slow tuning mode.
I've got the key, mate.
And you see we've got the fine tuning control here. But the fine tuning is reflected on the display. But we've got nice clean audio from the speaker. Turn the tone control down a little, get rid of some of the hiss. Conditions aren't brilliant this morning on HF, but this just gives us an idea.
and you know, the rock side. So they have been up the north east coast and up on the part of the country. All very best, Neil, and good luck. U1SIO, G1J, yeah, thanks for that, Tony. Yeah, I got all that. That's 100%.
Okay, and you can see we're in slow tuning mode at the moment, and when we turn the dial, we're going up in 100 hertz steps. If we switch to fast, we go up in 500 hertz steps, half a kilohertz each touch of the dial. So there we go. That's just a quick look at the FRG8800 in the shack. I hope you enjoyed it. It's a lovely receiver. It's become close to being one of my favourite radios here. I don't know why. Its performance perhaps isn't as good as, you know, some of the top end ones, but it's just a nice radio to use. It looks nice and it produces very nice audio. Thank you for watching.